Alt Sports Talk. altsportstalk.com.
I just as soon kiss a Mookiee.
It's a podcast about Star Wars and the New York Mets.
Hey, look at us. 2 weeks in a row. Jason, how you been?
Not bad. And you?
I'm good. I'm excited about the Star Wars news. We've learned Donald Glover will play young Lando Calrissian, and I just rewatched the scene before we started taping when Lando introduces himself to Princess Leia. He says his name is Calrissian.
As opposed to Calrissian, you mean?
Yeah, because most people, so we're all the way back to episode 1 of the podcast, folks. A lot of people say Calrissian, but he says Calrissian.
Okay.
Well, you got to trust the opinion of the guy. Should know his own name.
Yes, that is true. Well, we'll see what Donald Glover says in a couple of years.
Oh, that would be so annoying. And then you'll have to shoehorn in a book somewhere why he chose to start pronouncing his name differently to make it canon.
Or possibly I'll ignore it.
So anyway, Donald Glover, I'm a big fan back to his Community days. I would have loved to see him get a crack at Spider-Man. Atlantis, really cool. I'm psyched to see him play Lando Calrissian.
Yeah. No, everything about this movie, everything. I mean, we know like 3 things, but, to me, they're enough to get excited about. I mean, the 2 filmmakers are, terrific and have this great track record. And, the 2 casting things we've heard about are both really exciting. So, yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you go into. There are certain actor combos, and for me, this is one that, aside from it being a Star Wars movie, so it's going to be awesome anyway, but if I go to the theater and you tell me, all right, Donald Glover is going to be Lando for the next hour and a half, I'm in. Sorry, it's a Star Wars movie. 2:20. What am I talking about? Hour and a half?
It'll be probably more like 2:20, I would expect. We'll see. And, I'm sure presumably there'll be some Chewbacca news at some point. So, who knows? I don't know. If Han's past is up for grabs, maybe Chewie's a cameo, or I don't know. Honestly, that would seem a little odd. So, all great fun.
Yeah, we've talked about prequels before. I worry about the shoehorning of everything, and I don't know how I feel. I mean, I guess if you're making a Han Solo movie and you're going to the theater, you kind of expect to see Chewie in it, right? Like, it'd be weird if he didn't. It would sort of be like having C-3PO, but not in gold outer casing and just having wires. Like, you got to have him in the movie, right? If you're making the movie, you got to have him.
Yeah, I mean, it would be strange. I mean, when I think about storytelling, I say variations on this a lot. I mean, it doesn't mean that you can't pull it off, but, it means you're starting with an obstacle between you and the audience. And, so that's, you could do it, but, you're working uphill. And yeah, I mean, I don't know, but yeah, the audience is going to be sitting there waiting for Chewie. And, if they're going to wait till the very end or wait and not get it, then, it better be a really amazing story, which is, is doable, but we'll see. I'd be a little surprised if Chewie's not there.
Yeah, I think it would be surprising. You always have great points on storytelling, and we touched upon this before. I'd rather just catch Han mid-career, for lack of a better term. Like, I don't need to see him meet Chewie or go from being, a 9-year-old kid stealing gum to some sort of rogue smuggler. Just we all get it. It's a Han Solo movie. Let's just go. But Lando being in it, you have to assume there's going to be some sort of passing of the Millennium Falcon.
That's the immediate thought, yeah, that you'd see that happen. But who knows? That's some of the fun. I think we've covered this before, but a young Han was almost in Revenge of the Sith, and then that didn't happen. In some of the early script treatments, and this isn't any secret, he is living on Kashyyyk with the Wookiees and brings Yoda some information about like the Imperial defenses or something like that, which is actually pretty faithful to his backstory as Lucas originally envisioned it. That he was an orphan who kind of ran around with this sort of Fagin-esque band of thieves, etc., and then was raised by the Wookiees. So, yeah, there's concept art of a raggedy young Han, but then that idea got dropped from the film.
I like the idea of an orphan being raised by thieves and growing up on Kashyyyk. The idea of shoehorning in, whatever you said, 4-year-old, 9-year-old Han Solo meeting Yoda, it's like too much. You know what I mean? Like, we've talked about this before. My father and your father didn't meet at the Polo Grounds. It didn't happen. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, heresy alert, I'm still not sure what Chewbacca's doing in Revenge of the Sith, honestly. I didn't need that. I didn't need that myself. That felt like kind of something happening for the sake of it. But, yeah, I mean, putting Han in there, that I think it was a good decision not to go down that route.
Yeah, and there's this other podcast series I've mentioned before where they really overanalyze what they call the Phantom Menace trilogy. The conceit is that they only know of the Phantom Menace trilogy, yeah, and they're watching it from the beginning. And they did this whole thing about, I don't get this Chewbacca guy. Why is everyone fawning over him? He doesn't do anything. They're making him out to be a big deal. The other Wookiees have more important parts in the movies. And, like, who cares about this guy, some random guy? And they don't get it. It's very funny.
Yeah. I mean, some of that is kind of cool. Like, Chewbacca's kind of a skinny, runty Wookiee, which is kind of neat. Yeah, that's funny. You've recommended this before. I really do have to check them out.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things. We didn't talk about Jaxxon yet. I did tweet out his picture a few times just for no reason. But any new thoughts on Jaxxon and how we can incorporate him into upcoming films? Perhaps
on the Green Bunny? Well,
yeah, the Green Bunny.
You never need a reason to tweet out a picture of Jaxxon. It's his own reason. We'll see. That would be the single greatest cameo ever. Though, once again, I'll point out, he's sort of in the Clone Wars, or what's left of him. So
that always makes me sad when you bring that up. But he could be in the Han Solo movie.
Hey, you never know. Or why stop there? He could have his own movie.
Which reminds me, so I just said Han Solo. Lando Calrissian clearly calls the guy Han.
Yeah.
And Han clearly calls the guy Calrissian. Maybe they don't even know each other.
Or maybe they're just, maybe it's like this podcast. Maybe that's their way of dicking each other off. Like Han is. In scenes you didn't see, Han is like, why can't you pronounce your own name right, Lando? And why do you mispronounce mine? And then Lando just grins and they sigh and, on they go.
So maybe there's a scene in the movie where they'll just retcon that's their ongoing joke that they pronounce each other's names incorrectly?
Hey, who knows?
In the Star Trek universe, we've all heard of Captain James T. Kirk. In the original pilot, actually it's the second pilot in the Star Trek series, there's a scene where Jim Kirk's longtime friend Gary Mitchell has gone evil, and Gary has godlike powers. He creates a grave to put his friend in, and he puts up a headstone that says James R. Kirk. So as we know, it's 1965. We're filming a pilot. We don't know what the character's name is. James R. Kirk, who cares? Who thought we'd still be talking about that in 2016? But they've actually retconned in one of the books that was a joke between them, that Gary Mitchell didn't like calling him James T. Kirk. He called him James R. Kirk, and that's gotten kind of retconned. So let's rip that off for Star Wars.
Yeah, or I don't know. Or we could just ignore it. More and more, I'm like, retcons, I think, honestly, baffle more people than they help. So, I don't know. I know I'm being no fun, but sometimes you can just ignore these things.
Not at all. Like, Mystery Science Theater has the best line, right? Just repeat to yourself, it's just a show. I should really just relax. James Bond, I go see a James Bond movie. I get it. It's a James Bond movie. There's no way to make sense of it all, especially now that they put Judi Dench in the end of the Brosnans and the beginning of the new ones as the same character, there's no way to retcon that and just say, oh, the actor changed, whatever. Like, it's just a James Bond movie.
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm just, it's, I mean, people are, I mean, there's a segment of fandom that's losing their minds about, Saw Gerrera's eye color, that it was green in the Clone Wars, and it's, not in Rogue One. I mean, I don't know. That really, really doesn't bother me. I mean, one, artistic interpretation. There's, there's fans who want the ties in Rebels to be a different model because they have small wings and basically look like the old Kenner ships that we used, and that's an homage to Ralph McQuarrie art, which is is something throughout Rebels. And if you go back more, I mean, there's years ago there were all these fans who took the old Marvel Star Wars books and wanted different models of Star Destroyers because they look different. And I mean, that's just you had artists on a tight schedule who didn't necessarily have reference photos, so their Star Destroyers have different numbers of engines, etc. I don't. Let artistic differences be artistic differences, and don't tie yourself in a knot about it. That's my philosophy, at least.
I agree, and again, those Marvel comics, that's when you wind up with really cool green rabbitoid characters.
Yeah, come to think that Han's eyes are often blue in the Marvels, but again, was Han wearing contacts on various Rebel missions, or is it possible it was just a mistake?
I should bust out my collection. I have, for sure, episode 39 to the end of the original Marvel run, and I've got, I don't know, maybe a third of the beginning run. Why don't I have them all? Because I was like 9 and just didn't have money for comic books. But apparently by the time Empire or so was out, I have them all. They're boxed. Haven't looked at them in it's probably about 10 years now, but they're there. I should bust those out.
Yeah, or I think I'm pretty sure Marvel has now reissued them in as trade books too. Dark Horse did years ago. I mean, during their run, they were not only a great comics publisher for Star Wars, talking about Dark Horse, but also just terrific custodians of everything that had been done, collecting really, really obscure stuff that you couldn't find any other way. And it's nice to see Marvel do the same. But yeah, I was raised on those Marvel Star Wars books on Archie Goodwin and Carmine Infantino, and look, some of them are really, really cheesy. There's no getting around it. But I love them. They have, I mean, at the worst, they still have this kind of nice Flash Gordon vibe that was kind of the idea from the very beginning. And at their best, I mean, some of them are still among my favorite Star Wars stories, period. So, yeah, check them out.
And they're a little fun to look back 30 years later and watch the writers spin their wheels because, hey, do you think they'll find Han Solo in this episode, in this issue? Yeah. Probably not. Oh, we almost found him, psych. Do you think Luke will face off against Vader? He didn't.
Yeah, the search for Han Solo was, I mean, even as a kid, I was like, I felt sorry for them. I was like, don't tell me we're not going to find him till Return of the Jedi. It made me sad.
Well, I want to know whatever happened to Jaxxon other than your horrible suggestion that something bad happened to him in the Clone Wars. I'd like to catch up on his adventures.
Let me think. I'm trying to think. I know Pablo Hidalgo, now of Lucasfilm, did a cool article years ago for the short-lived Star Wars Gamer that had a lot of backstory on Jaxxon, but I don't remember if it took him beyond what we see him do in the Marvels. Wikipedia would know. We should get thee to Wikipedia and see.
Yeah, I'll do some homework before the next episode because I don't have the brain space to both talk to you and go down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, we'll have a Jaxxon update for the next one. That'll be good.
Tremendous. You mentioned the Dark Horse comics, and again, I don't want to Google and try and talk. They did it was their equivalent of a Marvel What If series where they looked at the original trilogy and just gave it a different storyline. Those were pretty cool. I'm trying to remember what those were called.
Yeah, Infinities.
There you go.
Yeah, they were. I really liked the A New Hope one. They kept they did one for A New Hope, one for Empire, and one for Jedi. The A New Hope one was really fun. Princess Leia gets captured and brought to Coruscant and becomes like an Imperial stooge. That was neat. It was neat seeing what happened to Han. Too, as Han's cynicism is proved right, and he, is, and I don't know, that one was really, really fun. Some of the others didn't think worked as well, partially because they didn't have as much room to maneuver when you had fewer movies in play. But that was really neat. That's a concept I hope that Marvel will come back to at some point too. But which I'm sure will happen. It's such a staple of comic book storytelling. You figure they'll get there eventually.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that you don't need to do right now because you have, there's Rebels, plus we're getting a movie every 12 months.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, that's definitely, and you also want a lot more material to be able to draw on. But I'm sure it'll happen someday. Also, in Star Wars, there's so many opportunities for making it work even in universe. Using the Force to meditate, seeing futures that are always in motion, as Yoda says. So Luke meditating on something that can happen. So yeah, I've always thought those are fun and in the right doses.
The other book the other comic that was really interesting was The Star Wars. That was Dark Horse going back to the original Lucas manuscripts and making comics out of those. I quickly looked at them. I own them digitally. These sat on my iPad all the way to Australia and back. You would think that'd be a good time to catch up on stuff, but man, Qantas just has an awesome DVD library to show you movies, and I couldn't believe I went all the way there and back and never started reading comics. I just watched movie, ate, slept, movie, ate, slept. But did you get to check those out? They looked really cool.
Yeah, they're neat. Jonathan Rinsler, when he was at Lucasfilm, put that together as a project, and I thought that was a really cool idea. It's it was interesting also from the storytelling. It feels very much like a first draft from which ideas got pared down and, the story got narrowed in on and then emphasized. But, it was really just fun to see and think about and enjoy in its own right. It gave you kind of this interesting double vision. Like you could just enjoy the story in its own right, but also, be looking at it thinking, like, oh, this idea turned into something else, and so forth and so on.
Yeah, that kind of stuff's just always fun. Like you said, just seeing what little things. It's almost like going through, like Beatles bootlegs and just seeing, oh, this turned into this and that turned into that.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, I love that stuff. I also Hasbro, at the kind of height of its glory period, also did a line of Ralph McQuarrie kind of concept action figures, which I've kept in a place of honor.
Oh, I have those too. I have them, and they're boxed.
Yeah, no, it's great. The R2 and 3PO were, I think, a Comic-Con exclusive. I think I paid way too much for them, but and that's another fun thing too. Like the original Chewbacca, is Zeb from Rebels. It's basically the same design.
Yeah. Oh, look at you blowing my mind.
Yeah, it was a good design. He turned into something else, but a perfectly good design to use later. And actually, the Rebels Vader Ozil is a bit of an homage to that as well. But and also Chopper, come to think of it, like Chopper's on Rebels, his little arms that stick out of his head that he's always flexing, etc. That's the original R2-D2 had arms like that. So, yeah, really fun stuff.
You just took me down another rabbit hole. This is the rabbit hole episode. Have you ever gotten lost like I am right now in steampunk Star Wars concepts?
Yeah, actually, there's a guy, Jamie Siloff, out in Indiana, who I had the good fortune to meet, who's just a brilliant sculptor and artist, etc., who has done steampunk Star Wars kind of custom figures. Really, really cool stuff. Yeah, that's he's done a lot of interesting things like that, like reimagining Star Wars, as a samurai film, as a Western, as steampunk, etc. So, yeah, cool stuff.
There is no stumping you, because that was exactly what I was looking at. And you knew the guy's name. You've met him, of course.
Did I get Jamie's name right? I hope I did.
You did.
Awesome.
You did. Okay. Just amazing. But it really works well as steampunk, like shockingly so, or perhaps Jamie's just that good. But you look at this and you go, yeah, I would watch this.
Yeah, it was funny. This was a few years ago. I did a book event in outside Indianapolis. And, there's a guy there who introduced himself very kindly to me. And he was like, "Oh, you're Jason Fry." And I was like, "Wow, you're Spill-Off." I just kind of lost my mind because I thought his stuff was so cool. And he was a little taken aback that I was a lunatic. But I was like, "Yeah, of course I know who you are. Are you kidding me? Your stuff is amazing."
Just great. So the other thing I should bone up on is, and it was sort of the same space that we've been playing in most of this episode, the betweens. Remember how big, of course you do. I'm asking Jason, hey Jason, remember that time Star Wars? Listeners, do you remember how big Star Wars Shadows of the Empire was? What a cool book, like that even came out, and how cool that was.
Yeah. Yeah, that was fun. I mean, the idea of kind of everything but a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, that was really kind of what was needed to do kind of a big event and get people excited. Yeah, it's an interesting concept to see, how that would play nowadays, because there's just such a steady tide of TV and movies. But also, I thought Shadows was really kind of ahead of its time in making stuff link up. Like, here's a story told in novels, here's a story told in comics, here's a story told in video games, and, trying to make each of them stand on their own, but also, fit together in ways that were satisfying. It's really, really kind of cool idea.
Yeah, I just the idea that it was a sequel that took place between Empire and Jedi, like, what a fun time to play in. Yeah,
the only bummer was, as we were talking with the Marvels, you knew Han wasn't gonna get out.
Yeah, it's a good thing they didn't treat it like Lost, like get him out and then he gets refrozen.
Yeah, no. I remember I was worried Marvel would do that back in the day, and I was like, oh, they can't do that. That'd be awful.
All right, well, we haven't talked Mets. That's a lot of Star Wars this week. Let's talk about the Mets. I threw out a concept on Twitter at MetPolice, and you at Jason C. Fry did not like my idea that the Mets should keep the 1986 Throwbacks in a Sunday rotation.
Yeah, no, I think that's a terrible idea. I was frankly shocked.
Why?
For multiple reasons. The first of is they look awful. They look terrible. They're awful uniforms. The racing stripe was not needed. The look is so much cleaner and so much better without it. It was a stupid idea in the early 80s, and why you'd go back to that now when they finally gotten the uniform right again. I mean, they got rid of that horrible taupe beige vellum color that looked awful. They're finally doing this right. Don't get it wrong. Now, I know what everybody says, but they won the World Series in those things. Yeah, I get it. But, your memories of that, and I have the same memories. Your memories of how wonderful it was to win the World Series, that doesn't make the uniform less crappy. I mean, if they'd worn, like, the lime green Mets uniform one year, that wouldn't make that a good uniform. I get it. The stuff they did in that uniform was great, totally, but that doesn't make the uniform great. I thought it was great to have it as an alternate this year because it was the anniversary. I thought that was an awesome move, and frankly, the kind of thing that we had really started doubting the Mets would ever get right. But, it's not for the 31st anniversary. No. Just do the real uniform.
How do you feel about Sunday alts in general? If, say, they decided to have black Sundays this year?
I would. Well, your specific question, I think they should bring back the blacks for special days that have something to do with, like, the 2000 Club, or, I thought it would have been really cool to play in them when they were honoring Piazza, for instance, stuff like that. I like bringing that stuff back. I think there should be a reason for it. Like Racing Stripes Sunday's 30th anniversary. Yeah, absolutely. In general, though, I don't mind the alts. I, in fact, would be totally fine with more alts. My objection is, I think there should be a reason for it. I think it should be on some kind of schedule, whether that's Sundays or, holidays or whatever it is. It should be, there should be, that goes back to the definition of uniform. Like, there should be a reasonable expectation of when they're doing it. And as long as you stick to that, I'm, fine with whatever. Do more alts, do Negro League uniforms. We've talked about this. I've always wished they would do, in limited doses, like what if uniforms and stuff like that. It would be really fun.
Yeah, so catching up on some points, I agree with you. They finally got the uniforms right, and I hope they keep them this way forever. I also was surprised they didn't break out the black uniforms for the Piazza stuff. That just seemed like a time to do it, would have made sense. Surprised they didn't. In concept, yeah, I love the idea of alts. One jersey that would be fun to see would be the 1987 road jersey. Now, usually throwbacks you don't do on the road, and I don't see a scenario where that will actually happen. Teams have been known to wear road jerseys at home, but that would be fun to see once. When there were a couple different road jerseys over the years, those would be fun to see. A couple years ago, they did a throwback. I think they were playing in San Diego, and the Padres did throwbacks, and a relatively recent Mets team wore the swoosh jerseys one day. Kind of cool, kind of fun. So, yeah, I like the idea. I love what you're proposing about what-if jerseys, Negro Leagues. And I think, if you turned Sunday into Anything Goes Sunday, you could probably have a really nice promotion. You could, if you wanted to go nuts, you could do 15 of them. I know they don't pay for themselves, but you could do something like that. The Cubs, during their 100th anniversary, they did something like that. They wore 8 different uniforms that year, just random throwbacks. I bought a couple.
Yeah. No, exactly. The Cyclones are really good at this too. They can get away with more because they're, a minor league team, and, there's a certain kind of goofiness, cheesiness you can get away with there that I wouldn't try on the big league level, like, lousy Christmas sweater night and stuff like that. But, I think, the concept's a good one, and I'm all for more. Play as the Mercury Mets for one night. Why the heck not? It'd be fun.
Well, that anniversary is coming up, or not anniversary. What would it be? Just the future will have arrived? At some point, we're going to be in the year of the Mercury Mets. That would be an awesome time. If the Mets would bust out Mercury Mets jerseys every Sunday that year, that would be amazing.
I'm not sure that would be amazing. They could do it once. That would be probably enough. But yeah, the point is they should do it. I spent forever trying to find a Mercury Mets hat for Greg Prince, and finally found one. It was too small, but I was like, "What the hell?" It's the closest I could get, and he was amusingly nonplussed by it. He was simultaneously, happy and wondering why on earth somebody would actually buy such a thing. All that stuff's fun. I guess if I had a wish list for the Mets, though, one thing would be, I would get rid of those god-awful orange-brimmed hats. Those things are just such a disaster. I just hate them. And similarly, I don't know if you're still holding to your pose of not caring about the World Series, but, the other night, here are the Indians and the Cubs in the World Series, which is just so astonishing for both those fan bases. And they're wearing like these awful spring training tops. They look so awful. I was really infuriated, which is a little crazy. But I was like, why are these two storied franchises arriving on this stage finally? And it looks like freaking March in Arizona. It's just awful.
Yeah, that was pretty awful. I did watch 1 hour of the World Series because they started a World Series game at 7 p.m. Eastern.
Yep.
I wanted to support the cause, not that I'm in a Nielsen household or that anyone would know, but just I was like, all right, if you're going to play World Series baseball at 7 o'clock, I'll actually watch it. And the ratings were pretty good that night, and the West Coast didn't explode, and I'm wondering why we can't play World Series games, playoff games, Thursday night, Monday night football, Sunday night football a little earlier. This is one of my big crusades, that the majority of the population lives in the Eastern time zone. Like, why are we worried about the 19% out west? Like, people need to get up and go to work.
I was really, what really interested me, though, is they did that for weather. They were like, we can get the game, and if we move it an hour, let's do that. And, that was kind of fascinating. I remember, I'm sure it's happened before, but I can't remember it. I thought that was pretty interesting. And, why not? And the other way, too, like, showing up at Citi Field at 7 o'clock for a game where it's going to stop raining at like 8:30. Like, why not just say, we're going to start at 9?
Right. There was I don't recall it ever happening. I do recall getting in the car one day. It was before a regular season Subway Series game. It's a Saturday. Mad Dog Russo's on the air, and he's mid-bit about how because of the rain scheduled for the afternoon, they've pulled the start time up to the game for 11:30, and Eddie Coleman's not here yet, so I'm going to be hosting Mets Extra. And he starts playing the theme. I totally bought that this was real. Like, I'm like diving for my phone, like, what the hell, Mets, stupid, da-da-da-da-da. He just what a master of radio. He totally convinced me that this thing was real. And it kind of made sense for all those reasons. Like, if the weather's going to be crappy, why don't we change the start time? But I guess, they're always worried about the one millionaire who's going to show up in the 8th inning, who finds a 7-year-old kid sitting in his seat, and, that whole thing. Like, I don't know, we have social media now. There are ways to communicate these things.
Yeah, and look, I think in the World Series you can get away with a lot better. I mean, for a lot of folks in New York are not going to be able to get to a game, at 6 o'clock on a weekend. On a weeknight. That's just not going to happen. But no, I was still really interested to see it happen. And yeah, the nice byproduct was we actually were able to watch the World Series and then get to bed at a decent hour.
Oh, I disagree. I'm sure if there were a World Series game at 6 o'clock, Mets fans could somehow get to Citi Field. You get vacation days, or your boss gets it. People could do it.
Yeah, for the World Series, yeah. But, a game in May, that's sort of hard.
Oh, no, 7 o'clock is fine. My crusade is, starting these games at 8:37, especially the football games. Like, I don't even bother starting them because I'm not staying up till 10 to 12 to watch these games.
Right.
All right, another dumb topic. How should the Mets honor their 2016 heroes? Do you get a flag? Do you get a circle on the wall? Do you get nothing?
Well, that's a good question. We've never. Eventually, we're going to hit all the. We're going to hit all the variations of getting X percentage of the way through the postseason, but this is a new one. You're what? Wild card?
Participants?
Yeah. I guess you're just a wild card.
I don't want that up on the wall.
Probably what goes on the wall. Oh, you got to put it up there.
No, you don't.
To me, this comes down to, is it game 163 or is it the first game of the postseason? And whether we agree with it or not, everybody's come down to it's the first game of the postseason. And if that's the case, then, it's the postseason. I mean, none of us are arguing that we didn't go to the postseason 2 years in a row. So in that case, to me, it means you put it on the wall.
Okay. I mean, we could go around in circles. I'll just go, okay, I disagree.
Okay.
Next stupid topic. I know the real answer, but I like to be silly. Where was Mr. Met in 1986? Show me a picture of Mr. Met supporting the Mets in 86. Where was this guy?
Oh, we should ask AJ Moss. He would know. Yeah, or actually, it's kind of embarrassing. I don't know about this. Yeah, Mr. Met kind of fell out of favor for a while, and who knows? He was off fighting crime. How's that?
All right, final topic. How much of a panic are you in about Cespedes opting out? Suppose.
It would clearly be better if he didn't. It was kind of a miracle he came back this time. So we'll see. I don't know. I mean, to me as a fan, that's one of those "what you gonna do" things. I mean, if it makes sense for the player. What can you really do? It's the reality of things today. And he clearly likes playing here. He clearly has enjoyed New York. He seems to like being a Met. So, I'm sure there'll be real conversations.
Yeah, I'd like to see him back, but you nailed it. Just if he's not back, I get it from all sides. I get it. I had one more topic. That wasn't my last topic. You reminded me of something. So I threw up on Facebook and the blog that the Mets should bring back R.A. Dickey. And then nobody actually clicked the link. And what I said was, as a swing man, he's got a rubber arm, and he can eat innings for you, and you can stick him in the bullpen. And when your starters falter, he can throw long relief, and you might need a spot starter, and you can throw him in there, and you can abuse him. And he was pretty popular with the fan base. Then Matt Cerrone jumped in and reminded me that R.A. was not very popular in the clubhouse, and I went, oh, yeah. But then I thought the reason he wasn't popular in the clubhouse was because the other players were annoyed that he was a look-at-me player. But here in 2016, the Mets have some look-at-me players, especially in the rotation, well discussed about Matt. But Mr. Syndergaard has really gotten into the hey, look at me phase of his career.
Okay. And do you mind? I don't.
No, so let's bring R.A. Dickey back.
I don't know. What's R.A. Dickey's contract now? I seem to remember it's fairly humongous.
I think he's a free agent now.
Oh, is he?
I think.
Does that mean we bring Josh Tully back too?
Sure, why not?
we need more catchers. I don't know. Look, I always liked R.A. Dickey. Sat in the dugout with him once hearing him talk pitching and thought it was riveting. Don't really know what he's like in the clubhouse. Thought his book was good.
The book is great.
It does seem like kind of the one commodity the Mets don't particularly need, though. I mean, can R.A. Dickey hit 25 home runs and play right field? That would seem more interesting.
Yeah, but you can never have enough pitchers, and I'm such a big believer in having the guy that can just take innings for you.
Yeah, no, you're right, and goodness knows last year certainly proved that, a million ways. Yeah, I don't know. Why not? I don't know. I'm speaking of. I mean, God, how many corner outfielders does this team still have?
Well, you're going to lose one. That'll free it up.
Yeah, you still have Jay Bruce and Granderson. I don't know, in the same spot. I mean, and neither one of them is really a good right fielder. Well, I don't know. The Mets will probably screw up Conforto for another year, so I guess that's one way to free up space. Now I've depressed myself.
So for what it's worth, Dickey made $12 million last year. I doubt he would get that again at age 42. He is a free agent. He was 10-15 with a 4.46 ERA. He did take the ball 29 starts, played in 30 games. I don't know. I'd love to see him as a swingman.
Yeah, some of that is Toronto in the AL, so those numbers aren't as underwhelming as they seem. But I don't know. It really sounds like the kind of thing you can It really seems like the kind of thing you can pick up relatively easily.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, good episode and good catching up with you.
Yeah, likewise.